G'day digital world, welcome back once again to another episode of Spliced In Later. I don't believe I've ever said g'day before I've started an episode. That's very unusual. I am Australian, but I'm not going to talk about anything Australian in this episode, so the g'day may have set some presumptions that just aren't going to happen, and I've panicked myself. Let's get right into it. What are we doing? Yes, we're here at Spliced In Later. We talk about movies and TV shows. We've got a couple of episodes coming at you this week. Later on in the week, I'll be presenting to you my review of Meg 2, The Trench. Could potentially be the last movie I go see for quite some time, thanks to the strikes and Australian release dates and all of that. Oh, there you go. I did speak about Australia just a little bit. Wild. Well, wonders never cease. So be sure to tune in later in the week for that. But for today, we are adding on another episode to our never-ending series of shows and listens and whatever, where we talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the ever-expanding global phenomenon that is all these Marvel superheroes existing in their own properties and then crossing over. You know the story by now. It's one of my favorite things ever. Blah, 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 blah. My enthusiasm for this is going to wane. That's not a reflection on how I feel about talking about the MCU. I love talking about it. It's just specifically this thing I got to talk about with you here today. I don't know. My opinions on it have fluctuated wildly in the past week since the last episode dropped on Disney+. I'm more kinder on it than I was when the show finished. But I was very angry with it when the last episode dropped in comparison to the other 5 episodes where I was sort of indifferent to it. And as I've said in previous episodes, it's good when you can talk about something that you really, really, really like. It's good when you can talk about something that you really, really, really hate, because then you've got stuff to talk about. When you're indifferent on something, when you find something just blah, boring, run-of-the-mill, you don't have a lot there. So I don't know how this episode's going to go, but it will be unique to MCU content that we talk about here. Whereas last week we did what we do half of the time, which is we go back in time and we talk about the history of the MCU going from each major installment leading up to the present day. So last week we talk about Avengers Age of Ultron and the potential near miss of the MCU back when things were on track but not necessarily completely on track and there was potential for failure. I believe in that episode I was like, but that's the thing, they course corrected and they did the right thing. So we have to take that approach now with today's MCU products. People might be feeling it's getting stale or expanding to the point of collapse or anything like that, but we have to understand that they're allowed to make mistakes and they can course correct. So I have to take my own advice when I talk about this here and remind myself they can course correct. And I bloody hope they course correct. Anyway, so that last one was just back, but otherwise what we do on the MCU show here is we talk about the new stuff, we review. So when I launched my podcast, it was right before the pandemic, which was a big MCU break, but then after a year, we sort of launched into a brand new world for MCU, which is either the new movies that come out in the theaters that we get to talk about and review, or brand new for the Marvel Cinematic Universe Disney Plus shows, which are usually 6-episode event series that take specific characters from the MCU, the lesser known ones, for example, Wanda and Vision, or Bucky and Sam, or Loki, or Hawkeye, and give them their own little show, like their own mini movie of sorts. Or sometimes they focus on brand new characters who, I guess, believing that they can't have their own larger Marvel property in a movie, like Moon Knight, She-Hulk. I don't know the reasoning behind it, doesn't really matter. The response to those shows has been genuinely mixed. The competency in making this stuff is there. The solidarity behind these familiar characters that we're all familiar with means that there is that established trust. But genuinely, the response to the shows has been very mixed. Normally, really good stuff, really good characters, really good concepts, but struggling with the TV format. It's either a movie that's been stretched out over 6 hours, so there's not enough really there, or there's too much there just to sum up in 6 episodes. So by the time you get to the last episode, everything sort of wraps up very quickly. It devolves into a big CGI punch-up fest. Very rare have I think the shows stuck the landing. And the ones that I think have done really good are the ones that you hear the most, what do you call them? those angry fanboys who just don't like powerful women on TV and hide behind poor writing or something like that. So I think stuff like Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, generally the new stuff, I think, brand new stuff, I think has done better than established characters. But I also know there's some love for Loki. Loki's the only one that's getting a season 2 coming out later. So normally when I talk about these shows, it would be silly to talk about them while the show is on. I always like to let it run out so you have the complete story. Whatever story that is, I do not feel you can comment on it until you're at the end. And normally in that case, I hold out hope that if a show isn't particularly gelling with me, by the time I get to the end, things will click, fall in place, and all will be fine. At least that's what I was telling myself week after week as we watched Secret Invasion. I don't know how familiar people are listening to this are with the buzz around Secret Invasion, what was going on while the show was happening. Depending on people who I spoke to, a lot of it was just, I hear it's not doing very well, to I haven't heard shit about it. And that example to the latter is probably worse. As I said before, if a show's really good, you hear about it. If a show's really bad, you hear about it. If you don't hear anything, then there's nothing really of note to talk about. And that really was what Secret Invasion was, which at the end of the day is a huge disappointment because the concept of Secret Invasion is great. It's great for a show. It's coming from a very popular arc in the Marvel Comics. It takes a very unique concept that's unique for the MCU of like an espionage thriller with who can you trust style conspiracy theory sort of thing. And it's taking a well-established popular character in the MCU, played by a very popular actor, Samuel L. Jackson, as Nick Fury, who for the past 15 years has always been ever present in this world, but has never really took the spotlight. The closest he has ever got is the Winter Soldier, and even in that instance, he's not in the movie that much, and he's of course playing support to Captain America. So Secret Invasion was supposed to be Fury's big shining moment. If you don't know what Secret Invasion is, the concept is taking a few different aspects from the MCU, but basically the Skrulls. If you're unfamiliar with what the Skrulls are, they are in the comics bad guys. Well, most of them are, but not really. They'd been set up to be the bad guys in Captain Marvel. Specifically, Ben Mendelsohn was playing a Skrull called Talos. On the outset of that movie, it looked like the Skrulls were going after Captain Marvel to steal her powers and do nefarious things. But in a nice twist on the movie, it turned out that the Skrulls were actually the good guys and were an oppressed people being persecuted by Captain Marvel's own Star Force Kree sidekicks. So by the end of that, Captain Marvel and a young Nick Fury realized Talos and his friends were all on the side of righteousness. They all fought together to take down the Kree. And then that movie left off with Captain Marvel has to help the Skrulls find a new planet because their old planet has been obliterated by the Kree and all of that stuff as well. An interesting factor about the Skrulls is that they can shapeshift. So their whole thing is that they can blend in, they can become other people. You never really know who's a Skrull, that sort of thing. So for the Secret Invasion concept, for the comics and for this as well, is a rogue faction of Skrulls have infiltrated Earth. They have shapeshifted into high points in government and other power players, mobsters, anything like that, with an ultimate goal to take over the Earth from the inside. The comics did this exceptionally well because they took advantage of the concept that I'm always raging about how great the MCU is, which is a vast variety of characters. And they slowly revealed that the Skrull invasion was so successful that so many people had been replaced by Skrulls, and you didn't even know it. Spider-Man was a Skrull, I believe, in the comics for a bit. Captain Marvel, Black Panther, hard to say. So for this one, it's a much smaller scale. I understand why. We're at a point in the MCU, there's not really an established Avengers. There's not really a set group like there was during the early days of the MCU. I'm not exactly sure what's going on per se. Everyone's always talking about the Avengers, but I don't think they as a team exist. And no one's really operating in a famous capacity of sorts like Iron Man now that he's been shuffled off into the dead, as it were. So you can't really do, Thor's a Skrull, Ant-Man's a Skrull, because they're off doing their own things and they're not really together as a team. In my mind, I would have taken the Secret Invasion concept and held off until the world had been established at that point. But Marvel's got a plan. Clearly they want to do this. And I don't mind taking the Secret Invasion concept to make it a Fury story. Of all the characters in the MCU, Fury works the best with the Skrulls because of his origin story of sorts in Captain Marvel. And he has this relationship with Talos, played by Ben Mendelsohn, so it is there. And if they were able to capture the spirit of like this very conspiracy infiltration thing where you don't know who to trust, and someone could be an ally or they could be a Skrull, you've got for some pretty compelling, engaging week-for-week storytelling. But for some reason, that just didn't happen here. What happens in this version of Secret Invasion is Nick Fury, he's up on a space station waiting for Captain Marvel 2 to start. He's not doing so well. I believe he's world weary. He's tired. I don't know if he wants to have been brought back from being snapped. Maybe he had found some peace. I'm not exactly sure. But he's summoned back to Earth by Talos and his ever-reliable sidekick Maria Hill because a group of Skrulls are doing exactly as I said. They have gone rogue, per se. And what originally seems to be a small faction of Skrulls who are out to destabilize government and topple regimes with the ultimate goal of taking over the planet and turning it into new Skrullos. What happens is the concept, the Skrull infiltration, is in a way much grander than Fury and anyone else had realized. Some Pacific characters that are familiar to us are actually Skrulls. And Fury and Talos' daughter Gaia, and a few other people who are aware of the invasion have to try and sort of stop it without letting people know what's going on. The concept is humanity is a big racist piece of shit, which is true. If they learn that aliens have infiltrated them, it will just lead to hatred and bigotry and all of that stuff as well. That's the concept. Sounds awesome. Sounds like it would be really cool. I don't understand then why it really just became this really boring thing. For some positivities here, I didn't hate it. I didn't think in the beginning, that it was a terrible show by any means. I just felt like it wasn't taking advantage of the concept that was clearly there. You had some really interesting characters which had not been built up in previous MCU stuff. Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Talos, Rhodey was in here, War Machine, Tony Stark's best friend. They'd said that Martin Freeman's Everett Ross from the CIA was going to be in this. Talos' daughter Gaia. There's some good stuff in here that has always been overshadowed by Cap and Tony and all of that. So you've now got a moment to focus on them. And these are good characters to be put in a spy thriller of sorts. They're the shady characters who've never really been truth, justice, in the American way, like Captain America. They're happy to put bullets in the back of people's head in dark alleyways, do the shifty stuff. Very specifically Fury, and it's good that you can really delve into what makes Fury tick, or what's going on with the Skrulls. Why have they not found their own planet? Why are they still on Earth? Why are some of the Skrulls fiercely loyal to Fury? What has he done with them? He's clearly manipulated them for his own shield means. So is this his fault that this main Skrull, Gravik, played by Kingsley Benadir, has splintered off so much and is now ready to imbue them all with Super Skrull powers and just fuck the Earth over? But what you had was every week was just a series of scenes of people talking to each other, saying sort of things, demonstrating their acting abilities. But the dialogue they were saying was cheesy as hell. It was very flat. No matter how much everybody tried to deliver it, it just wasn't selling me on any sort of intensity or threat. Each episode as well ended with a shock death. Whether it was real or fake out, it was always the same. And it got to a point where you were just like, I don't care. The positivities, I think Samuel L. Jackson did really well as Fury. I do not think that this was the Fury vehicle that we were hoping for. But I feel like he got to do some stuff. He got to do some acting that he has not done since Winter Soldier. For the most part, since Winter Soldier, Fury has just shown up to stand there and nod. Well, to be fair, I liked him in Captain Marvel, but that's past Nick Fury. Nick Fury's been stuck in this very specific role in the MCU, so I was interested and intrigued to see what they were going to develop from him. And to Sam Jackson's credit, he takes Fury to places we haven't seen before, and it is nice to see him not overshadowed, to understand who he is. Does he have relationships? Does he really care about other people? Does he care about these Skrulls or anything, or are they just a means to an end? Where the show worked perfectly was when it really focused on this friendship, this loyalty between Fury and Talos, the main Skrull from Captain Marvel, the good Skrull, the Skrull that's loyal to Fury and wants to protect the Earth, doesn't want the Skrulls to overthrow it. I thought when they were working together, it was really good. I think Ben Mendelsohn was completely underutilized in here, and without spoiling, I think the ultimate fate of Talos in this show is upsettingly not fair to the character and to developing what was going on there. Some good performances in here from Olivia Colman as Sonya Falsworth, who's kind of like the British Nick Fury, but someone who's even more slimy and sleazy, who has the future of humanity at stake, who's clear that they want to protect the Earth, but they don't mind snapping fingers. And it's weird and awesome to see Olivia Colman, of all people, doing that. It's I think whenever she was on screen, she really sold what she was doing. The problem was she was not on screen enough for it to really matter. She would disappear. She'd have one scene per episode for the first 3 eps, and by the time she really got invested, it's like they didn't really know what they were actually going to do with her. That's it for positives, really. There's not a lot of negatives. It's not like the show is bad, except for one specific thing, which I'm saving to the end. And that will require me to spoil something specifically, but I have to spoil it to talk about it. So be sure to hold around for that. But again, the show wasn't badly acted or anything like that. It was so flat and dull. It seemed like no one involved really actually cared that much about what they were doing. And for something like Secret Invasion, built as this big thing that was going to shake up the MCU in a way that had never been done before, it did not do that. It was just meh. And it really highlighted the problem that is really there, that even someone like me who loves the MCU can see, which is that there is no real plan. There is an idea, but no one's working together to make sure that all these products fit together seamlessly to tell a cohesive story. When it was just movies, you could get away with it. But when you're making constant movies and TV shows and you expect everybody to watch all these different things and they're all supposed to fold in together to tell the multiverse saga or whatever else is going on, you can't afford to drop the ball. And hearing interviews about this show where people were like, oh, we were told we could just do whatever we want. We got told where Nick Fury needs to be at the end of the show, but we didn't get told like he can't change irrevocably to be a completely different character in Captain Marvel 2. When people tune into Captain Marvel 2, if they haven't seen Secret Invasion, it doesn't matter because they'll recognize Nick Fury as the Nick Fury they've always been. No matter what happens on this show, it doesn't really matter to what else is going on, and I don't know what the grand scheme of it is. The show ends in a very dark, dour note, and I feel like nothing was really achieved. It's very depressing. It's very upsetting. I don't know what the goal is here. The implications for a lot of characters, a lot of races, for instance, not just Skrulls, but any aliens living on Earth, like the Asgardians, is upsetting. And at the end of the show, Nick Fury does just go, okay, bye, I'm going off to Captain Marvel 2 now. I'm literally going to go back on that spaceship that I was waiting on for that movie to start. Maybe I've changed, but I don't think so. People I know have been fucked over tremendously, but that's okay because I got a movie to go to. Which is hard for someone like me, who's always advocating that there's a plan, there's a reason. You cannot just keep making this stuff and not have like at least the respect that these things have to matter, that the shows have to have relevancy. They need to be monumentally changing in a way that affects things around. If they don't, if you're building to a Phase 6 endgame plan, a la Infinity Saga, that's fine. But you can't have so much content, so many things, so many different cooks in the kitchen, but then just be basically, it's like they're putting this stuff out on a factory line now. It's like, here's the Secret Invasion show. We didn't really care if it was good or not. We just wanted people to subscribe to Disney Plus because we'd rather have people subscribe to that and pay us that way so we can fuck over all the actors and writers who are out there striking and unable to pay for their health insurance or anything like that. I don't know. I guess that brings us to, I think, the one example which I think highlights it perfectly. And I do have to spoil a little bit of Secret Invasion. So if you want to watch Secret Invasion, if you haven't watched it yet, and you're waiting for people to tell you to watch it or not, but you don't want to be spoiled, hello, I guess. Go away so you can go watch Secret Invasion, understand what it is I'm about to talk about, and then come back. I'll wait. Did you do it? Okay, welcome back. So there's one thing that, for me, turned the show from being this, like, indifferent thing, like a disappointing blah, to enraging. When I first got the reveal at episode 6 of Secret Invasion, I was so angry. I was literally fuming. And then I had to step away and go, okay, maybe I don't have the full pieces of the puzzle. There is a Armor Wars movie coming, which is about Rhodey from, if you don't know who Rhodey is, he's War Machine. He's Tony Stark's best friend. He's essentially Iron Man now because Iron Man is gone. But he's the Iron Man that's always been there by Tony's side from 2008, back when he was Terrence Howard. Well, Rhodey has never been fully developed. He's never really taken the spotlight on the show. He's always been consistently there to a point where he was part of the crew in Endgame, the last survivors of the superheroes, who go on the time heist, escapades, whatever, to take down Thanos and bring everybody back. You know, he's been there. He's a good, solid dude. Even from Civil War, where he gets knocked out and he loses the ability to walk, you've always felt like he's been the true essence, like the human character that's there, the average Joe amongst your genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist Tony Stark here. Soldier out of time with Steve Rogers, the literal god with Thor, the scientist Bruce Banner. You know, he's your average Joe. Anyway, he was in the show. Like, he was there. I believe at this point he is an aide to the president. And fairly early on you learn, okay, so a Skrull is pretending to be Rhodey. Not a huge reveal. The reveals of who actually is a Skrull in this show are not terribly mind-blowing or anything like that. But then by the end of the show, the implication when you defeat the Rhodey Skrull and you find the real Rhodey, who's tied up somewhere in a hospital gown, the implication there, especially when they hit you over the head with, how long have you been here? You've been here a long time. So basically, the implication hasn't been confirmed. Could be wrong. But it's very much implied that after the Civil War airport battle, when Iron Man and Cap were fighting over Bucky, when Vision accidentally knocked Rhodey out of the sky and paralyzed him, while he was in hospital, that's when the Skrull took his place. Meaning, the Rhodey in Infinity War, who fights with everybody against Thanos, the Rhodey in Endgame, who spends 5 years fighting with the team and then traveling through time to save everybody, the Rhodey that's did that brief appearance in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier to really hammer home how hard it is to be a black man in America. That's not been Rhodey. That's been a Skrull. And not just any Skrull, but a mustache-twirling evil Skrull who just hates humanity and wants them all to die. I hate that so much. If that turns out to be true, that's a huge blow. I've always said that regardless of what happens in the MCU, if they shit the bed and it becomes this terrible thing, you always have the Infinity Saga, which can normally be untouched. But the implication that Rhodey, a character that's been there for some very pivotal moments and has some pretty important stuff, to be like, no, he was just a Skrull the whole time. I really hate that. And the idea that Kevin Feige and all the people behind the MCU are going like, oh yeah, we want people to look back and go, hey, he was a Skrull the whole time. Whoa, what are you guys doing? First off, it's a bunch of bullshit. I do not believe for a second that when they were making Infinity War and Endgame and they were giving Don Cheadle these scenes, that they were going, you're a Skrull, by the way, and we're going to blow people's minds about this in 5 years' time. Not a chance. You would not have these moments, like, for instance, where Rhodey's talking to Nebula about what it is to literally lose a part of you. Or to have that emotional goodbye to Tony in Endgame, or I don't care. You cannot argue. You cannot convince me that when he's talking to Sam Wilson about what it is to be a black man as a superhero and how people don't trust you and all of that, you cannot be like, oh, we actually meant what he was saying was, I'm a Skrull. No, if there's too much there's too many emotional moments, there's too much pivotal moments, and there's too much of the way Don Cheadle portrays Rhodey in that stuff. You cannot convince me for a second that there was always going to be a sneaky little Skrull behind there. You are sabotaging the development of a character, albeit a supporting character, for shock value, to be like, hey, look what we're doing, aren't we clever? I don't like it. I really, really don't like it. I'm allowing myself to calm. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I'm allowing myself the idea that maybe it's not true. There are too many plot holes in this concept. For one thing, Skrulls bleed purple blood, and Rhodey took some damage in Endgame, and I'm pretty sure he was bleeding red blood. So I'm hoping that maybe he was taken after Endgame. He got hurt. He could have gone to hospital during that point. I don't like the idea of what they're implicating at, and I feel like that's the direction they're going to go. And if that's the case, it really does emphasize that we're now in the point where nothing really matters. It's all about shock value. It's all about just doing whatever you want, twisting things on a whim, not working together to do a cohesive world and a cohesive plot. Very dangerously, you are getting to a point where you could become every other cinematic universe that has tried to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is like DC, anything like that, which is all unplanned, throw shit at the wall and sees what stick. So that one thing alone knocked Secret Invasion down for me from being the weakest of the Marvel Disney Plus shows to being genuinely a thing of worry and something that genuinely annoys me. If you haven't already guessed from this line of review and talking, I don't like Secret Invasion. I didn't hate it. I was very indifferent to it. But with that Rhodey thing, I don't like it a lot. It's the worst one. And I can't recommend it. I don't know how this is going to implicate the future of the MCU going forward. But with the way shithead CEO Bob Iger at Disney and the reactionary way of people going with the strike and everything, I'm really not confident about where this universe is going, and I'm not going to stand here and advocate for it. I'm going to be like the rest of you. I'm apprehensive about what's coming next. The fact that Secret Invasion finished and within 2 days they were like, all right, we got to start advertising for Loki Season 2. Everybody likes Loki Season 2. Look at the poster. Look at the trailer. Ki-Hee Kwan. Everybody likes Ki-Hee Kwan because he was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? Yeah, we cast him because you like him. I really don't know. So we'll see. I will prioritize with this MCU show probably more going back and reminiscing about the good times, which will hopefully reignite my love of this world. But Secret Invasion, I was excited for it. I was indifferent to it. And there are parts of it I really don't like. And at the end of the day, looking back on it, I really have no desire to rewatch it anytime soon. So, for the positivity, I'm hoping in a couple of days when I go see Meg 2, that it's the kind of dumb summer blockbuster where Jason Statham punches a shark that will reignite my love of cinema and all of that, even if it's dumb stuff. To be fair, with Secret Invasion, and it's coming at a time where I'm just indifferent to Hollywood. It makes me angry as well, with the way the strike has happened, the reaction to it, why we're at that point. Here in Australia, the decline of Disney allowing physical media to come out over here because they just want you to go subscribe to their streaming because that'll be a good way that they can avoid paying people for sooner or later. The whole world at the moment, the whole concept of Hollywood and all that kind of sucks. So I'm hoping Meg 2 will just be some fun stuff. And then I'll prioritize stuff in the movie TV world that I genuinely really like, because I want to bring us back to what I started this podcast for, which was to talk about the positivities. So we will talk about the older MCU stuff that I like. We'll talk about some TV shows and movies that genuinely I do like. The Mummy trilogy, Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies, what's going on with Star Trek at the moment. You know, genuinely, let's bring some positivity back in here. I will review movies as they come out, but I can't prioritize seeing them when they come out because, for one, Australia's not getting them, and I don't know what the go is for the strike. We'll see how we go. I really don't know what this show will bring you over the next few weeks, but I'm actually interested to see what happens, and I hope you are too. In any case, I'll see you in a couple of days for the Meg 2 review. I do hope you'll enjoy me for that. I hope I haven't depressed you too much with the Secret Invasion stuff. At the end of the day, I didn't want to talk about it, but here we are, I've talked about it, and now we can move on. So yeah, until the Meg review, I hope you all stay safe, stay kind. I love and appreciate you. I do appreciate you all listening to me and tuning in to these shows, regardless of the quality of content. It's like the Wild West. I can't always promise that everything's going to be positive. I can't always promise that everything's going to be good. But I can promise that everything that I bring to you will be my genuine self. I don't make any money out of this. It's just a hobby. So we'll keep on keeping on. So until next time, you've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.